So Alan is now posting the link on the website.
Yes, sir. Give me 1 minute. Okay, we're good to go.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alan.
Great. So we can start with the call to order. Please know any comments by the public are welcome and can be emailed to publiccomment@lsbme.la.gov. Alan, please confirm you've verified the identity of all tele and video conference participants. Is the sound clear and audible to the public and those on the tele and video conference?
It's clear to me.
Yes, ma'am. Everything's good to go.
Great. All additions to the executive or public agenda must be made presently, as we will no longer make additions to the agenda after the close of the public session. Any additions? Okay. So we can move on to the roll call. This is Emily Nazar. I'm present today. Hillary Janani, are you present today?
Present.
And Nikki Wilano, are you present today? She is.
You signed in.
And then Alex D'Angelo is not present today. Okay. Do we need anything else there, or can we go ahead and move into our rest of our agenda?
You can move into the rest of the agenda.
Okay. The first item is public comments. I don't think we have any public comments. Someone can correct me if we're wrong there.
I have not seen any at this time. Alan, have you?
No, sir. We're good to go.
The next agenda item is old business. Hillary did provide minutes from the December 3rd, 2021 meeting, which were included, I think, in the announcement. Do we need to specifically review those?
You do need to approve them.
Okay. Move to approve the minutes.
I'll second that motion.
Well, Emily shouldn't move. Hillary, you moved it. Someone else needs to second it.
Gotcha.
So can I second it?
Well, we should have a quorum. You can't be just two people having a meeting. Where are?
We do have Nikki here as well.
Yeah, sorry. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Okay, my camera is needs to be replaced. I will second that motion.
Great, thank you.
Okay.
And then you should ask for any objections or on a number of people voting yea or nay, either one.
Okay. Are there any objections?
Hearing none, then it passes unanimously and you can move on.
Okay, fantastic. So I think we can move into our new business agenda now. The first item is finding that the agenda meets criteria under LA, that particular statute or law, I think it is.
Yep.
Right. Are there any public comments relating to that?
Not at this time.
Okay.
I've got none. I just checked.
Okay, great. Our second item was pertaining to the rules course from Susie Allen. Oh yeah, go ahead, Susie.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to introduce myself and explain what this process will be like, get your comments, and then I am going to listen to the rest of the meeting just to hear what some of your concerns are. Obviously, I've read your rules and laws, but and done some work on this, but I'm less familiar with your profession, so I just want to sort of learn some of your issues and hope to include them. But just to give you the broad overview, Obviously, we license 15 different professions now, but, and for many years, for some of our licensee groups, we have had a board orientation or, laws and rules course. And, you are our newest group. That course does not exist yet. I will be building it, working with you to create that course. Historically, with our licensees, the physicians have been required to, all of them have been required to take an orientation or course like this upon their first renewal. The board is moving so that that is the case for all of our professions. We will be putting these courses onto CE Broker, which is already required for our licensees to have an account with to verify their continuing professional education. Yours will be the same, and and henceforth, these courses will also perhaps be used as just optional CE for people to refresh themselves. We want to make it available to everyone. We want to make it, it'll be free, it'll be available. So it will be required for first-time renewers, but suggested for those who have not yet taken it and so forth. So that's, and should it come up that you would want to have us present some other, additional jurisprudence course or something like that, we are certainly amenable to working with you to make this happen. So these courses, describe obviously your rules and laws. They also describe the role of the board and the role of the advisory committee. We also talk a little, issues about adjudication and the complaints process. And then there is, usually a quiz and a test, in which we are basically trying to point out areas where the individuals in the profession might not fully understand the rules or might encounter situations in your profession where they might inadvertently violate these rules. So that's what, that one of the principal things I work with each committee on is, since I don't know your profession as intimately as you do, what are situations, scenarios that we could use in a quiz or test question to sort of highlight this might happen to you, and here is the correct course of action pertaining to laws, rules, and the basic ethics of your profession. So that's how I work with you. Further, I just want to say, now you're a very small committee. Sometimes our committees are larger. Often what I will do is come up with sort of a first draft and just have, one or two people on the committee that I work with offline. Any more than that, it would be a violation of the open meeting law. So usually I sort of craft do the initial work with, one person or whatever, just looking at it. Then it would get presented to the group in a meeting or submitted for review like any other agenda item. And then we discuss it in the public forum. The one thing we do is if we're talking about the actual quizzes, we would do that in executive session, so the entire public wouldn't get a glance of knowledge of the quizzes or tests beforehand. So that's generally, the process. Do you all have any, comments or questions initially about this?
So it sounds like it would be something that essentially the licensees would be notified that, hey, as part of your renewal, you need to take this course, and they would access that through CE Broker. Is there a fee for it or anything?
No, it is free, and it posts instantly as free CE onto their CE Broker transcript. So it's sort of a win-win. Then they know, your rules. I would think this would probably be a 1-credit course just because of the size, the amount of text to be covered. And so it would just be you have to take this, here's how you get there. It appears instantly on your transcript, and the applications programming interface that we have that controls whether someone can renew would basically look to CE Brokers process and say, oh, the course is there, they're good, they can renew. That's how that works.
Got it. And it's like a typical kind of CE course where there would be some sort of presentation or something, and then you take the quiz. At
this point, it's mostly read the text, take a few little answer some mini questions. CE Broker's format is not quite as sophisticated as what we have been using in Moodle Rooms, but they are working on that. And it's basically honestly an exercise to force people to be aware of the rules and laws that govern them. It's it's really a pretty simple exercise that way. But as I said, I really rely on the committee members to give me some scenario-based questions so that we can put it in a context for people to think, oh, I haven't really thought that might come up in the real world. How do I deal with it?
Yeah, well, I think what you suggested probably makes the most sense of if there's a draft at some point to share with us, we can take a look and maybe add some suggestions to that and go from there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does anybody else have any comments on that?
Just that I'd be happy to help out with that as like a point person.
Great. Okay. Great.
Great. Okay. Are there any public comments?
I have none. Alan, do you have any? Hang on, I'll double check
No,
again.
sir. No,
Nothing
sir.
came today.
We're good. Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you for listening, and I'll be in touch, not immediately, but I will be in touch. Probably Nikki with you then, and we can start the process. Thank you.
Sounds great.
Thank you. Can I jump right to the next agenda meeting?
You betcha. Go right ahead.
All right. So our next item was the current committee terms and personnel changes. Looking at our past minutes, I think we are at the point where we are all up for reappointment now. And then we also have Hannah's appointment that we've been working on getting through the governor's office. So I guess just us kind of touching base on what we need to do to get all of that rolling. I know in the past we've needed to provide candidates and CVs to the board, Dr. Collada. Should we do that now for each of us?
Well, whoever needs to be reappointed, yes, and if we got to go to the governor's office, let me pull up the rules real quick to double check. I think they do have to go to the governor's office. That's what you have in your law. But if it does have to go to the governor's office, we'll be happy to send them for you. But we need to get it done pretty quick because he's already starting to do his appointments now for the year, and he only likes to do them once a year.
Okay.
The good news is everybody serves until reappointed is the philosophy. And if I'm wrong, I know my legal will tell me so.
Okay. I know Hannah, I think Jacinta said that Hannah's items have all been sent over at this point. So hopefully she's going to be included in this process. Her stuff, I think, should all already be there. She's on right now as a public observer, but she is trying to become our fifth member. So that should be good. And then I guess Hillary and Nikki, are you both okay with being reappointed?
Yes.
Yes.
I think the question that I have, which we may have touched on the last time around reappointing, but we weren't all up for reappointment at that time, is that if we have to submit alternative options, I mean, ultimately, if there are 5 of us up for reappointment at the same time, that's going to require 15 genetic counselors in Louisiana if we can't reuse submissions.
Well, you can for each slot, you can reuse the nominees. Okay. And we will tell them who is the current incumbent. Okay. But the key here is that, they can pick the alternatives through, you don't have to have 15 different ones. You can have other names for each slot that we may repeat with the incumbent sent in as well.
Great. That makes it easier. Thank you for clarifying.
Okay, so we can take that action item of identifying at least 2 other genetic counselors in Louisiana to submit as our alternates, but we can notate in there that the current appointees, I guess, are preferred to be reappointed. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yes.
Okay, that will be our plan there then. Anybody else have any comments or questions on that? Okay, and are there any public comments on that?
Double checking, and I have none. Alan, do you have any?
No, sir.
Okay.
Okay. The next item is a generic discussion on the operationalization of collaborative practice agreements with genetic counselors. I did not add this item. I'm not sure if there was a particular concern relating to this or just a check-in on how this has been going for people who have the CPA.
It's a little of both. We want to know how you all are doing it as we look at, we've been instructed to look at collaborative practice agreements for everyone to be sure that the intention of collaborative practice in terms of adequate support, adequate consultation, adequate evaluations, and interaction between the collaborative parties is adequate to protect the public.
I will comment that I don't have a CPA because I don't order in my current role. So I don't know if, and I think Hillary's in the same boat. I don't know if any of the other genetic counselors on the call might have some experience to share.
So I have recently started a position and am discussing collaborative practice agreements with my department since I will be ordering as part of this role. And I suppose that the sort of potentially some clarification for discussing this with like the practice administrators may potentially be of assistance in this scenario for me.
So can you tell us a little bit about, I mean, have you operationalized it in any way? Are you doing it now or you haven't done it?
Am I doing?
A collaborative agreement right now? Do you have?
I do not have one, no.
Okay. Well, I think what we need to be thinking about is understanding the purpose of the collaborative practice agreement and having the documentation so that it's done in a way that reflects the purpose. And the main purpose is to protect the public, okay? So that, you know, you interact with the patient and then address issues that you may need some support with. And on a regular basis, correspond with or discuss or consult these cases or some cases that are obviously need help with your collaborative practice supervising physician, and you all work together, and you just need to be able to have those kind of things codified in your agreement, and then the mechanism for verification that it's occurring, so that you make chart entries that say, I consulted Dr. Jones, and Dr. Jones suggested that we do the following, and we've taken steps to order those tests, and that's the way you do it. I think the key is keep records, have a record keeping system, have a defined set of expectations, and adhere to it. And that way we can, if there's any issue, we can all look at it and say, well, maybe this collaborative practice agreement needs improvement. That's what I think that's the key, that what we want to do is protect the public.
Okay, understood. Thank you.
Okay.
So maybe that's kind of a item that we can just keep standing and check in on. I don't know if you want us to try to get any more feedback on that for you, Dr. Van.
Why don't we ask you guys at this point, you ladies and gentlemen that are on the committee, to put together a proposed draft of what a collaborative practice, or just the points, not a draft, but the points of what an adequate collaborative practice agreement should look at. Then we can meet at our next meeting and talk about it and just decide on what points need to be there. And then we can be able to share that with anybody who has one, so that everybody knows what the expectations are.
Yeah, do you know, so I think we could do that. This is new to most of us. Is there another profession that has a CPA that we could use as a template?
There are a number of them. I mean, if you just Google collaborative practice, I mean, if you want, I'll send you a couple of articles. I think there's lots of things that go on in what collaborative practice is. And I think the key is it exists to allow the more rapid access to healthcare in a manner that allows the public to be protected without seeing necessarily the highest level of providers. So I think if you get that, I mean, you can look at some, and there are lots of professions that push the envelope on that, but there's some definite things you can find. And I can send you all some articles if you want. I think the key is we ought to make the decision on what we want it to be. And, obviously it applies for those that are ordering genetic tests. And we want to make sure that under the law, you select the most appropriate, accurate, cost-effective method of diagnosis.
Mhm.
We're charged that in the law.
Is
Right.
who could we get in contact with? Because I think there are some genetic counselors, they're just not on this committee necessarily, who have CPA in place. Would there be a way we could get like access to the CPAs that have already been filed? Do we know how many of those
We
have
have
been?
none on file yet.
None, okay, okay.
Well, I actually had one when I worked at Women's Hospital with Dr. Superno that I devised, that we devised together. And I think we sort of used a nurse practitioner CPA as a guide that Women's had. So I can get that copy probably that I had with Dr. Superno and plan to present that at the next meeting and just see if everyone thinks that that's appropriate or how that needs to be tweaked, if that's helpful.
Yes, I would, because in your legislation, it says the collaborative practice shall be established as a formal written document that memorializes the relationship between the genetic counselor and the physician and establishes the criteria governing the genetic counselor's performance of each of the following functions. And we've talked about those: ordering and selecting the most appropriate, accurate, cost-effective tests. So again, I think, we can look at a number of things. We can, but I think what we want to do is not necessarily say what should be in each collaborative practice agreement, but we should say the salient features that should be found in each. We don't want to address the particulars, but we want to give them the features that it should include.
Okay.
I think that sounds good. Anything else to add? Anybody? Okay, and do we have any public comments?
Not at this time.
I don't see any on mine.
Okay. The last item we have is licensing accreditation clarification. There was an email thread that took place initially a couple of years ago where the board was contacted, or the committee was contacted, because we have had some applicants for genetic counselor licenses in Louisiana who went to school at a program that is no longer exists, basically programs that were fully functional genetic counseling programs 10, 20 years ago, but have since, stopped existing. And so the individuals working on issuing those licenses were asking for some clarification on how we can sort of sort through that when we have someone apply and we're not able to easily verify their program because it's a historical one. And so what we had suggested as the committee was that if somebody is applying for a genetic counselor license in Louisiana and they are certified by the American Board of Genetic Counseling, that is enough, because the American Board of Genetic Counseling is already checking those sort of that education. They have sort of the master list of all those programs. They are doing all of that already. So if someone has managed to get that certification, even if it's a program that we can't, find a website for right now or something, that is a reliable sort of way to verify.
So you don't want us to verify, you think we should not, make sure I understand, you do not think we should verify education?
I think that for these one-off cases, I think there've only been 3 or 4, and these tend to be genetic counselors who've been practicing for a really long time, and they went to a program maybe 30 years ago, and they've been certified. They've renewed their certification multiple times on the national level, but those programs sometimes don't even have like a contact number listed at this point. So I do think rather than not licensing those people, we need to have we need to be comfortable with some other way to verify it. And I feel like ABGC does a good job of doing that and keeping track of that. People
Do
have
you want to visit each one
Go
of
ahead.
those individually at a committee level?
We could, they don't happen very often. So if you want us to take a look at them, we can. That if that would add sort of a layer of kind of protection to it, I think we could definitely do that.
All right, well, then what I'd like to do is finalize you guys on today, if we could, that if it's accredited program and they have that certification, we grant them the license. If they have the certification and we can't verify the training, we would present it to you all, and you all would decide if it's acceptable or to recommend to the board that we license. Is that a comfortable way of saying it? Because I want to make sure the board understands what we're doing, and it's the recommended criteria that the users of your expertise is to do it this way, and it's not just something that we're arbitrarily doing at a staff level.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense for us to set eyes on these particular cases and be able to approve, given that programs are shifting, that will help us ensure that applicants are accurate in their statements.
Okay, then I think that's what we'll go ahead and do. And we're going to, just so you know, we're going to be going to something called Parchment in the not too distant future, hopefully before the end of the year. And we will be verifying a lot of electronic transcripts. So maybe the program might not be an active program, but the school where the program was may still have transcripts of the training, and that will help us a great deal as well.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. Anything else anybody has to add for that item? Any public comments?
Hang on, I'm checking again.
None. at this
None
time.
for me.
Okay. So that concludes our agenda items. I think this is the portion where I ask if anybody has something they need to discuss in executive session.
I'm unaware of anything. Olivia, do you have anything that needs to be in executive session?
No, Dr. Van, I don't have anything that needs to be in executive session.
All right. The one thing I do need to tell you is that you are considered in some ways state employees, and you have some certain responsibilities, and they are certain amounts of things like ethical training in certain areas that the state requires that you do. And very shortly, Jacinta and Olivia will be giving you something called an H number. H is in hotel. And what that will allow you to do is to sign into the Louisiana Employment website out of the Division of Administration. We call it LEO. And you'll be able to sign in and see the courses, and you'll be told every year we have to get those done. And they are, unfortunately, not something you can use for continuing education. They are for your service as a state employee or a civil servant, if you will, who is volunteering their time, still has to do this under the state laws. And the mandatory ones, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Patricia, is ethics, sexual harassment, and maybe driving.
Ethics and sexual harassment for sure. I don't, if we're going to do everything by Zoom, I don't envision driving being an issue.
Okay, great. Okay, that's all I needed to tell you all. If there's no other business, Patricia, did you want to make any comments to tell anybody anything?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, and just so you'll know in the future, the way we're doing this is, let's say you've got a licensee who's giving you grief and wants to talk about something, and it's a burning issue, and he wants to have a meeting, and you call a meeting. All we need to do is, for people like we did for Hannah today, send us who you want to be invited. We'll get them in the waiting room, and at the appropriate time, let them in, and they can speak. And we'll want to make sure that this operation is doing it in such a way that we meet all the requirements of the public meetings law. And Ms. Pat is our expert, and we're going to do whatever she tells us.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Anything else we need to do?
I don't think so. Do I need to?
Take a
make it
motion to adjourn.
motion? Okay, so I'll make the motion to adjourn the meeting.
All right. Very good. I'm sure it's undebatable and nobody's going to object.
All right.
All right. Thank you all very much
Thank
for your input today. And if you all want to make a regular event of this to keep things moving, please let us know. Susie may have something ready for you all in a couple of months, and whatever you want to do, we'll meet as often as you feel like you need to meet to get things done. But if you get those names in, we'll get them up to for the various slots, and we'll go from there.
That
Get
sounds good.
everybody reappointed, but everybody serves until they're reappointed.
Okay, got it. All right, well, yeah, we'll work on getting that list together and send over, see if we can get it in time this year.
Okay, thank you.